1957. The Elvis Presley skyrocket is flying high. By December, he will have been on top for 2 years, and he has proven himself to be a limitless performer. He has 20 gold records, and he is shooting his 4th movie. But there is one very real problem. Elvis is almost 23. He's getting too old to go on being a teenage idol. But how will he settle into the establishment without losing any ground? The answer will come in a letter from Uncle Sam. No induction has caused so much controversy, and millions of draftees will expect Washington to cushion his Army life. But Private Presley will be quick to set them all straight. Singer-guitarist Charlie Hodge.
I mean, he went in looking sharp, being sharp, and they soldiers with him. They knew he wasn't gold-breaking. He was out there working like they were.
His image is steadfast. His career is flourishing, and Colonel Parker is taking care of business.
They always said the colonel could sell sunglasses in the snowstorm. A hard-nosed businessman's what the colonel is. No love, no respect. You do your job, I do my job. Elvis did his thing, the colonel did his thing. Elvis got what was coming to him, the colonel got what was coming to him. But the colonel always had that relationship with all of his artists. He had Eddie Arnold, Hank Snow, he had many people before he had Elvis. He wanted your love and respect, and he didn't get that from the colonel.
But even when the fan magazines predict that his induction will cost the U.S. government a fortune in taxes, the colonel will keep his 25% in the big figures. On June 10th, Elvis will spend his furlough in Nashville, recording with some new musicians, and a brand new Jordanaire.
He didn't know what type of bass singer the Jordanaires had picked up, you know. He'd heard that I had a low voice.
Ray Walker replaces Hugh Jarrett.
Elvis was always coming up with good ideas to bring out certain lines in certain songs, and he just said, "Can you copy me an octave lower?" I said, "Well, sure." He'd be singing, "Now and then there's a fool such as I," and I'd be, "Now and then there's a fool such as I."
As Elvis completes the first phase of basic training at Fort Hood, he will take up residence with his mother, father, and grandmother in the nearby town of Killeen. And life on the Presley home front seems to be settling down. But Elvis is constantly worried about his mother's weakness and discomfort. And though she would reassure him, just as she always has, Gladys is suffering from hepatitis. On August 8th, he would drive his parents to the train station for the trip back to Memphis, where she would immediately be admitted to Methodist Hospital. 3 days later, Elvis will get emergency leave, and despite his fear of flying, he will get aboard the first available plane. For nearly a day and a half, he and his father will alternate their bedside vigil, and then, at about 3 a.m. on Thursday the 14th, Gladys Presley is dead.
And when she died, he had just got to the point where he could give her all the things that he wanted to, all the nice things, and buy her a nice house. He just bought Graceland and all the things I wanted to do for my mother, and he said when I got where I could and we had lots of money, didn't have to worry, he said she died and it was all for nothing.
As she is laid to rest in Forest Hill Cemetery, the entire world mourns her passing. But the Army gives Elvis very little time to grieve. Elvis is being shipped out. He'd keep a low profile in Germany, but during his off-duty hours he would find time to do some dating. And then, thanks to sidekick Curry Phillips, he will meet Priscilla.
Well, she's got to be the prettiest girl I think I've ever seen. And her personality was charming. And her voice was so pretty, too. She had such a beautiful speaking voice, lovely hands. I personally thought she was just like a little porcelain doll.
There was a new love in Vernon's life, too. The wife of American Army Sergeant William Stanley.
Elvis was afraid that his father would leave him.
Devada Elliott Stanley.
His father had a new family now, and he had just lost his mother. And he didn't know what type of person I was going to be. But I did not rush into Graceland to change things, to take Gladys's place. And Elvis had respect. Then later on, it grew into love.
Especially when he comes home to meet Dee's 3 sons, David, Ricky, and Billy Jr.
They were very small at the time he came, very young. And of course they loved Elvis. He was a big brother. And there were times they didn't like me when they had to go to bed early and they had to be separated from Elvis. And if I would not let them do something, he'd say, "Well, boys, I tried." So I was the wicked witch. Elvis spent more time with my sons than any man, even Vernon Presley or their own father. So, of course, that love grew.
March 3rd, 1960. Sergeant Presley's plane touches down in the midst of a swirling snowstorm at Fort Dix, New Jersey. He's where he belongs, as if he'd always been here, and 2,000 fans and media people are waiting to welcome him home.
The first thing we did when he came home was the Fontainebleau Hotel with the Frank Sinatra show. And we got on a train here in Nashville. Colonel rented a whole train. We went down the eastern seaboard, and all along from Nashville to Miami, the tracks were lined with people. That whole journey, it was a beautiful thing. And he'd come in and out of the car all night long to wave at the people. They'd throw teddy bears and flowers and things like that at him. And if they ever slowed down, he'd speak to them. They'd reach out and touch. Every little town, every pig path had somebody standing at it because Elvis was coming that way. It was unbelievable.
Unbelievable is right. From Frank Sinatra's TV special, Elvis would get $125,000 for what amounts to only 6 minutes of airtime. And even though the critics will turn thumbs down, it's plain to see that 2 years away from the throbbing pace of rock idoldom has produced a new Elvis. But with the release of Pot Luck, his last new LP for 3 full years, comes the beginning of a new phase in the Presley career. Suddenly, no more live concerts. And to keep the potential moviegoer from staying home, the Colonel would raise the price tag on a Presley television appearance to $150,000.
He wanted to be a great actor. Then when they started throwing all these just sing-songy type movies at him, he just couldn't wait to get through with them. But he didn't really fully enjoy those years.
The pattern is both efficient and profitable. A movie, a soundtrack album, and an occasional single, usually from the soundtrack album. But even though he is physically out of touch, he is by no means invisible. And Hollywood's gossip columnists will keep a close eye on his private life.
They had me married a couple times. I was down on Wilshire Boulevard one night. Some people said, I thought you were in Mexico City on your honeymoon. And I come to find out that it was in a Mexican paper that I was coming there to get married. And I didn't even know the girl I was supposed to be married to.
But his one great love is Priscilla. And then on May 1st, 1967, selected friends and members of the press will be invited to the Aladdin Hotel on the Las Vegas Strip and asked to witness the marriage of Elvis Aaron Presley and Priscilla Ann Beaulieu. At 5:01 p.m. on Thursday, February 1st, exactly 9 months later, Priscilla will give Elvis a 6-pound, 15-ounce baby girl. Lisa Marie is my life, he tells the press. Everything else about me is for the fans, but my baby, that's a different matter. For the first time in his life, Elvis is ready to take on the world.
He wanted to be back on the stage. That's why in 1969 he decided to go. He told the Colonel, I want to go back on the stage. I want to go back to my fans.
With every single performance, Elvis gives a whole new meaning to the word live. With the supportive talents of the Sweet Inspirations, Kathy Westmoreland, and the Stamps Quartet featuring J.D.Sumner.
He would come up when he started to introduce me and he said, ladies and gentlemen, I've known this man here since I was 17 years old. I used to sit in the audience and listen to him sing. And he said, J.D. said, it's a privilege to be sharing your stage. Which, oh my God, I had about 2 feet of it, and he had the rest of it, but he was just that type of person.
And the pure power of the Presley magnetism will captivate fans of every age.
He had given this little girl a scarf, and this lady snatched it away from her, just pulled it right out of her hands, and he saw this. He took the chain with this expensive cross he had on, had diamonds in it and everything. He took it off his neck, and he put it over the little girl's head, and he kissed her on the cheek, and he whispered into her ear. And that really got me because he would always get right down in these little kids' ears and he'd talk to them and they'd have this look on their face of total rapture. He said he was telling secrets. He told the guard, take her to her seat. And he said, you make sure that no one gets that from her. He said, you walk her to her car, you make sure that no one gets that cross.
Elvis will tour from coast to coast aboard the Lisa Marie. And whether on the road, in Hollywood, or between tours at Graceland, there is always the Memphis Mafia.
They were longtime friends.
Dee Presley.
Some of them were classmates, and they were very, very tight security. They never spoke to the press, and they kept everything very secretive. Whatever he did, well, they were right with him at all times.
But some